We had Alabama number 7, Ole Miss number 9, and Texas A&M number 15 all go down. Which of these upsets stood out the most to you? Because I think you can make a case for either of those three.
Sure.
For me, I think it was Alabama losing in the manner that they did to Oklahoma.
Yeah. Score not exactly indicative unless I've received some sort of, or I haven't seen some sort of indication of the weird phantom penalty that went against Alabama when Ryan Williams caught the incredible touchdown pass. Obviously didn't make a difference, but yes, final score 24-3, yes?
Correct.
Oklahoma's defense came up big, and I like to tout the theory. It's not my theory. It's just general common sense at this point that if you are an underdog at home with a rowdy crowd and a good defense, that's a nice position to be in if you're the type of person who likes to wager on games. Oklahoma, in theory, was that team heading in, but they have laid some absolute eggs in that position before. And whether it was the turnovers against South Carolina, whether it was, not at home, but the performance or lack thereof against Texas and Dallas, that even with a strong defense, they weren't exactly feisty this year.
Sure.
And so for them to come out, make the plays on defense, come out with the game plan that they had to limit Jalen Milroe. That's how you say it, right? Jalen Milroe.
Milroe.
Yes.
Come on.
I'm in my head, Ty. That they were sideline to sideline with him, forcing him to make either an incredible throw or struggle. That was incredible to watch. Jackson Arnold was more legs than arm, which is fine because that's a working game plan against tonight's version of Alabama. They came out and they surprised them. They jumped lanes. Obviously, the pick six and the interception that was a near pick six. It was one of those nights for Alabama in a terrible way, and it was one of those nights for Oklahoma and in an incredible way. Heads up, smart playing, and just erasing defensive line play from Oklahoma.
234 yards for Alabama.
Yeah, that's nothing
in this game. And we knew that Oklahoma had a good enough defense, but defense can only be one half of the equation unless you're the Iowa Hawkeyes or someone of that nature. It's been a struggle for Oklahoma on offense. And to your point, yeah, it felt like by using Jackson Arnold more as the running back to move the ball than the passer, they had something of a game plan here. He
25 carries.
25 times for 131 yards. So it was an effective game plan. They were able to move the football on the ground, and they were able to hold Alabama down in a really dramatic way. Again, holding them to 3 points, that jumps out to me. Alabama, by the way, now has 3 losses. Maybe we'll wait to the end of this segment to play the Dunzo just once for all 3 of them.
If it is indeed true. Yeah.
If it is indeed true, I don't know where things are going to stand with respect to the playoff now being so Alabama has 3 losses. Ole Miss also now has 3 losses. Ole Miss went on the road, squared off against Florida, Dan.
Yeah.
This was a game that was going on around the same time, at the same time as our Indiana-Ohio State stream. So we had one screen going with the Indiana-Ohio State game. We had another one going with Florida-Ole Miss. I want to give credit where it's due to Florida.
Please.
Because Florida now has beaten ranked teams in consecutive weeks for the first time since 2008. And they got bowl eligible with this win. If you consider the context of this season for the Florida Gators, with all that they have had to deal with, totally separate from the fact that the schedule was murder coming into the season.
Especially this back half, yeah.
I mean, this was a really good job. Really good job this season, even if it were to end today by Billy Napier. And so him getting the vote of confidence and the way that he has brought this team along has been, I think, impressive now. With the benefit of hindsight, we've seen what has gone on, and good on Florida for getting bowl eligible. This game, though, was a car crash for Ole Miss. It was a car crash. In the post-game, I don't know if you saw the presser that Lane Kiffin gave. I mean, he was very sullen.
Yeah.
Talked specifically about missed opportunities. And it's 100% true. They came up empty on 3 trips inside the red zone. They had a bunch of drops in the passing game.
A ton of drops, yeah.
At least 3 drops that could have gone for passing touchdowns. They also had 3 injuries with Trey Harris, who did leave in the second quarter, re-injured himself. They had a safety, Yam Banks, get carted off. Reese McIntyre, their center, also left the game. So on top of all that, just a brutal end to this game for Jackson Dart, who our Verballerhood mentioned in our little shared document that he had a bit of an existential journey the last 5 minutes or so in this
Buddy,
football
I
game.
did just watching him.
It was rough. I
Man.
felt bad for him.
I felt so bad. Yeah.
I really felt bad for him because it was clear he was emotional about the way things went down. Threw a bad pick into triple coverage.
Yes.
Ole Miss ends up getting the football back on that ensuing drive.
There's like a minute left. Yeah.
A minute left. He throws another pick, which is ruled incomplete. Meanwhile, he's on the sidelines already in tears.
Losing his mind. Yeah.
Dries off the tears, comes back out there, immediately throws another interception, and again is beside himself.
The sort of miscommunication throw. He's going down the sideline. Receiver stops, expecting a different route or a different throw, and Florida is there to end the game at that point. Yeah, it's missed opportunities. It's Ole Miss didn't have, it seemed, any running back that they've been counting on this season available to them, whereas Florida, even down their best receiver, as they have been for some time now in Trey Wilson, DJ Lagway, I'm still like hampered by the hamstring situation, makes great throws downfield. It really was just running and doing better at capitalizing at without opportunities that Ole Miss, I mean, you mentioned it, right? It's when we talk about being a buttoned up team, whether it's Indiana, whether it's Oregon, whether it's Ohio State, whether it's Texas against some not great competition, okay, anybody who is showing excellence,
yeah,
it's just stacking those little things. It's the focus for the receivers. It's bringing somebody down ahead of the sticks, whatever it is. And Ole Miss was just, I don't know if they were in their own heads. I don't know if just one thing led to another where things were compounding with those receivers, with Jackson Dart trying to do everything, obviously down the running backs that they were. And you mentioned the center and Trey Harris, but it seemed like it was just pressing, going to like it was a defensive lineman, right? On the 4th and short moments, the short yardage moments that they weren't able to get done, that it was just one thing going wrong after the next. And Florida was just good enough to take advantage. Florida was good enough, like a good team should, take advantage. And that's a tough-fought win for the Gators at home to survive.
I give them a lot of credit. Ole Miss now, by the way, also with 3 losses, I would say most likely eliminated from the college football playoff ranks, but we can.
Somebody's got to be in this thing, though, Ty.
Somebody's got to be in it, and that was part of the equation that we were trying to discuss when we did our live stream earlier in the day.
Yeah.
In the event that we have not just one loss by Indiana, which we saw and we'll get to, but more losses on this Saturday in Week 13.
Yes.
What would that mean for who falls where? It's an interesting conversation. The other big one in the SEC was a game that just ended shortly before we hit start here on this in 4 overtimes. The Auburn Tigers knock off Texas A&M, Dan. This was a game in which Auburn came out like a ball of fire early. A&M came on late. Auburn kicks a field goal to tie it up despite some of their strife in the kicking game. And they end up going essentially into penalty kicks, as we call it here on the show, where everyone's trading off trying to go for 2-point conversions. They make theirs. A&M doesn't make theirs in the, I guess, final stanza of this thing. 43-41 is your final.
So this is an Auburn team that loses 4 in a row. Started the season after the Alabama A&M game, losing 5 of 6 to FBS teams, including the Calgorithm. And that was whatever it was, 5 or 6 turnovers.
Yeah.
Why are you bringing up old stuff, Dan? I hear you. And then losing to Vandy and beating Texas A&M, top 15 Texas A&M in a wild game. They jump out to an impressive lead, big plays through the air, big stops, and then down to 2-point conversions. And obviously, if you're an A&M fan, just gutted for, I think it was Amari Daniels. It was a great play call, great execution, just the hands weren't there. And he was obviously just deeply, deeply sad over how that game ended, as anybody would be. I'm not trying to be funny.
It hit
at
him
all
in the
here,
hands,
Ty.
man. It hit him in the hands.
It hit him in the hands. You got to make that catch.
Perfect throw.
And an incredible catch by, it was Lambert Smith, right?
Keandre Lambert Smith, the Penn State
transfer. A great throw from Peyton Thorne. A clean game for Auburn for the most part. And even though they gave back the lead, just a nails kick to tie it and send it to overtime. It was another strong day of kicking for the most part. What a win for Auburn. The crowd rushes the field, and Auburn able to, despite everything that went wrong, despite being an elite loser for so long this year, losing in an incalculable number of ways. Scientists are still not fully sure if they can count the ways that Auburn has been able to do itself and be did in this year, pulling it out against Texas A&M, incredible night for the Tigers.
I want to know where the A&M defense was.
Man, same. This is the defense that had been getting better over the course of games, and it did get better, but I want to
know where this defense was, because all of the guys that Auburn has that can beat you, beat them. Peyton Thorne throwing for 300 yards on you, it's a choice. Jarquez Hunter is going to get his, but he got it. He got it big time in this one by multiples. 130 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground. Cam Coleman, freshman wideout who we have loved all season.
So good.
Who we have joked is going to go elsewhere next year. Maybe that won't be the case. Who knows? 7 catches, 128, 2 scores. This is not so much to frown upon the job that Auburn did, because Auburn has had issues with its offense this season. This was a really good showing against an otherwise good defense. I just want to know if this was a look-ahead spot for A&M. This was part of why...
Well, that was the joke, right? Where Mike Elko accidentally said...
Exactly.
Make no mistake, we're thinking about Texas.
This is part of why we talked about this when we did the pregame show back on, Thursday. It wasn't so much the fact that the point spread was low, but there was this game against Texas that was on deck. We did wonder if there'd be a double look-ahead spot here. Some potential for that, with Auburn also having Alabama on deck, which is now a huge game for Auburn. They can win that one and get bowl eligible, but just kind of a dud for A&M on the defensive side of the ball. It came back to bite them. Early in this game. They made a push at it late, and then again sort of fell by the wayside in overtime. So great win for Auburn. This does plunge the SEC into a bit of chaos, Dan. I'm not going to lie to you.
Right.
Those 3 teams that all lost today stood to be part of that playoff conversation. We can get to that maybe a little bit later on. I don't want to make this whole show about playoffs and scenarios and things of that nature, but just something to kind of file away in the back of your mind right now. We've got a very interesting situation developing within the SEC, just who's going to get to this championship game, but also who's going to make it through to the next round beyond that.